focus. You know you feel more.
That's it.
Father, we thank you for this opportunity whereby we can gather together, dear God, and fellowship as a study together your word. We ask Lord that you would intervene for this class, oh God, and Lord Jesus, that whatever is being taught, oh God, should put it into practice. Just have your way this morning. Take full control in Jesus' name.
Amen. Start by looking at this quotation from Matthew 18:21 and 22. Let's do it. Peter and the Lord Jesus. Peter saying, Lord, when someone has sinned against me, how many times ought I forgive him? Once? Twice? As many as 7 times? Jesus, you must forgive not 7 times, but 70 times. Now, what does that say to you? What do you think about that interaction between Peter and Jesus?
You forgive people until it's not like a limit. You keep forgiving.
Right. You keep
Forgiving people. Yeah.
It's the infinity. You forgive all the time.
Yeah.
The infinity.
Until the
cutoff
end.
point.
End of your life, you keep forgiving people. You know. I think so.
You forgive.
You can never fed up of forgiving somebody and say you do it again. I think you should forgive them. You know, it's,
Is there a limit?
I don't think it's a limit. That's what you're telling us.
So that's the interaction. Now, how do you relate that to a real life situation? How do you apply that principle to your own life? How does it work?
I don't
What's-
know.
No, it works. You may not forget, but you would forgive and free yourself.
So you have to forgive and forget.
You don't forget. No.
But what says of forgiving and
If you're not gonna forget.
Oh, you're gonna forget
Exactly.
something you got on mind.
All right,
should do the book.
Let's hear you, Mitzi.
The trick for me is not forgiving, but is in giving them a chance in the future. Because I think if you keep letting the fox in the hen house, you just sabotage your progress constantly. So how do you can forgive and forgive, but where I get stuck is, do you keep letting them in? You know what I'm saying? That's where I get stuck.
That's right. Good point.
And that's what I wonder, what would Jesus say about that? Do you keep letting toxic people in? I don't know.
I think it's a requirement from God that we forgive, right? But as human beings, sometimes it is very difficult to forgive. So what we have to do during those times, we have to call and go and pray to Him so that the Holy Spirit could work on us so that we can forgive. Because we would just say theoretically that we forgive the person, but then any little thing, sometimes you bring up the past of what you forgive. So to overcome that forgiveness, you also have to continue praying and ask God to continue working in you so that you could meet to the stage of forgiving and being true to yourself that you forgive that person, not saying it theoretically.
But also to you forgive them. You keep forgiving somebody. Doesn't mean that you have to stay in the life, if it's a relationship that you want to get out or what. You forgive and you move on. You know, it's not like you will keep them in your life all the time. There is a line to draw, but if you move on, you don't have that in mind of you really truly forgive them. Don't worry about it anymore.
So what if this person is your husband?
Well, that's what I...
You can't move on.
No, there are some husbands who's really abusive, so you have to know, you know. But again,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
if you have an abusive husband, you know, you would
Yeah,
remain in that.
I think it is how you approach it. I believe that if we're in a relationship and we have the attitude to help one another, and you disclose something to me, my attitude of forgiving you is also in the form of helping you through this process. It could be, forgiveness doesn't mean that you did something wrong that would affect me. It could be an expectation. Let's say you lose a limb. You know, I married you with everything functioning right. You lost a limb, and now you're a 1-foot lady, right? I have to forgive you, and, you know, even though you were walking and hiding this from me all the time, or your arm is no use. I gotta forgive you and try to say, well, how can I help you through this so that we can continue together? So I think it's the attitude of going about that forgiveness.
Ambassador, one quick thing. Forgiveness. I mean, when you truly forgive somebody, to me, you may not you may not forget what happened, but there's no burden on you. You feel light. You feel free.
Yeah.
And that's when true forgiveness really kicks in.
Well, a number of issues have come up about it. Is that, look here, I don't really think a person losing a leg is something for you to forgive.
Not a good example. Not a good example. But you can replace it with anything.
Yeah, but to address Mitzi's observation before since, I think we have to understand, first of all, that when a person confesses, right, it has to be a genuine confession, right, Mitzi? So it has to be a genuine thing. And if there's a genuine repentance, well, then forgiveness should flow. Right? So the matter of letting the fox into the hen house shouldn't really recur very often, because if the repentance is genuine, it means that person has changed, has turned around.
Straight.
Right? So it's not a question of the fox getting into the hen house again. Right? So that's one thing. Forgiveness, somebody says it's supposed to be ongoing. Right? It's not. You do it once, and then you stop at that. It's ongoing. I agree with that, right?
That's what I say, it's ongoing and
Yes. I mean, as situations arise, you ought to forgive.
Yeah.
The problem is that it might be the same situation occurring over and over and over again. And then it comes down to the point of whether that was a genuine repentance, whether the person was genuinely sorry. And if that habit continues, then you can see it's not necessarily genuine, right? Or the person might have a very deep problem, a deeper problem than a surface problem. That is why, he holds on to this habit. So the problem then is to break that habit, is to help change that habit. And it has to flow from forgiveness, because that's the first step in this corrective action that can be taken in that person's life, if you want to help that person. So we have to see what Jesus was saying here, is that forgiving has to be an ongoing attitude of a person, right? And it doesn't happen once and then you stop. It goes on. In the same way that asking forgiveness when you do something wrong has to be ongoing. When you make confession, it's not, well, I confess now and for the next 20 years I got nothing else to confess. Right? It's supposed to be ongoing. If you slip up, you mess up, then you have to own up to your wrong and confess. Right? Now, we were talking last week about this confession, matter of confession being, a total confession and not a partial confession. Because some people might feel, I admit part of it, but I don't admit all of it. And I think we agree that confession must be total to the satisfaction of the person you're confessing to. That person must feel satisfied that, well, they have the whole story. Right? So it has to be complete, it has to be total. Now this chapter begins with an interesting statement here. It says, if communication is key to a healthy marriage, then keeping secrets is key to destroying one. And it goes back to this partial confession or no confession. Once there is no confession, that is something that is between the relationship. It's something that tends to break the relationship. If it's partial, well then it's not quite there, but it's not good enough. Right? So it has to be a complete confession. And it emphasizes this matter of communication, which is what we've been talking about all along. Communication, there has to be communication between the two partners. If there's no communication, then, things are going south. All right, today we want to get, the other thing we looked at last week was the woman's perspective of this whole matter of confession, whether, they wanted a partial confession or a whole confession. I think we settled that. Women wanted a whole confession. Good, so now we're looking at it the matter of confession from the other side. Not from the point of view of the person confessing, but the point of view of the person receiving this confession. Right? Not the person asking forgiveness, but the person of whom forgiveness is being asked. How do they view this whole thing? What are the likely reactions when a person confesses to you in a marriage relationship? What are the likely reactions when one
There's a big cry out.
one partner confesses to the other? What happens?
After the big beat up.
No, normally you hear these words like, Lord have mercy.
You have that being beat up. I hope that doesn't happen.
I think shock. The recipient usually expresses shock,
Yes.
right?
Maybe the next person will does something too. Yeah, so it could lead to that.
Or maybe you might say, I can't believe it. You know, you might
Believe it.
Yeah, but I mean, these seem so far to be mild reactions. Apart from George, all the other reactions seem to be rather mild. And whilst a mild reaction might be, like in the case where the person bought beef from this vendor, I can understand that, but then there's some very serious confessions which I doubt would have mild reactions.
That's a good point.
See?
I think there's some, you'll get like heavy breathing, like a deep pause.
Are you looking for the mention of divorce? Is that the answer that you're looking for?
Well,
The threat of divorce?
it could lead all the way up to that. Eh? I'm talking about serious betrayals now. There is a serious betrayal of trust. I mean, a person buying beef from
Get a heart attack.
a vendor, apart from the supermarket, that's, small potatoes. But then, when you come to the matter of trust, when there is a breach of trust, how do you react to a confession of a breach of trust?
Love, go away. Like, you love the person so much and then, they keep losing the trust and losing the trust. Do you think that they love going away too?
All right.
Give it a
Yeah,
opinion.
I believe I'm talking about.
Don't take it personal.
Yes, I think you're saying that we begin to lose trust and to lose love.
Love dies
goes with-
slowly.
Yes, love dies slowly.
Love dies
You
slowly.
think that's a natural reaction?
Absolutely.
And the
Yes.
flowers wouldn't regenerate that at all, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a
It's
very
natural,
natural reaction. There's something that affects your trust there.
Yeah.
Okay, can I trust this person? Right.
Especially if it's something didn't happen before marriage and you're married now.
Well, that was
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will lose trust.
Pastor,
Yeah.
sorry, I know about a situation post-marriage where someone went outside of marriage and commit infidelity and got a child. And then to come back now to be inside of this, even though the person forgive them, they say anytime they get a little misunderstanding, they keep coming back because relatively speaking, that is still embedded in a person. So that trust is, like the hard to really get back, even though the
We'll come to
person.
that just now. So we see there's a breach of trust and people begin to feel, hey, commitment isn't there anymore, or total commitment isn't there anymore. It says here, when your spouse makes a mistake or offends you, you have the opportunity either to act self-righteous or to make your marriage a safety net. You can act self-righteous, but I never committed a breach in this marriage, and you can react that way, right? Some people react tit for tat. If you do this, well then I will do that. Right? Or the alternative is to try to make of your marriage a safety net. What do you think a safety net means? What do you think the author is talking about here? Yeah.
I think it means, in other words, a safety zone. maybe that's where you can foster a best friend relationship with your spouse. Maybe it means coming to them and knowing that this is a safe place where we can confess to each other, and maybe foster compassion for each other's sins because we too are sinners, and maybe it's just a safe zone for you to confess.
Yes, exactly. That's what
That's
it really is.
nice.
It's creating a safe zone, a zone where you can let your guard down, without fear. It says when you're on the receiving end of your spouse's blunder, it's natural to become indignant. I'm right, you're wrong, you owe me. But that stance, however natural, puts you at odds with your spouse instead of pursuing unity. You see, you can take that attitude because, you're wrong. You feel that the only way to justify it is to be angry. That's one way. The other way, if you want to build something out of it, you have to look at the forgiveness aspect. And say, I'm holding on rigidly to my position now. So you have to grovel, right? Well, where does that get you? Usually in divorce court you get you. Right? Or you can decide, well, this is a chance for us to strive for unity. But unity doesn't come easy. It's hard work. Right? And as we said earlier, in marriages, it's never 50-50. Sometimes it's a 50-50. Most times, the balance is different. But there are times when you have to give more, sometimes 100. Right? But if you're striving for unity, then you have to be prepared to do this. And creating the safety net is a demand on that attitude. Right? So,
Pastor Patrick, where there's, forgiveness is very important in marriage, especially when you have children. You and your husband may separate for a certain amount of time. But when you separated, you think about it. I don't see the harm in coming back together to say, you know what, forgive me, I made a mistake, I shouldn't move out. Because of our kids, let's get back together. Or kid, it could be one child. I think you should go 100% of not getting separation when you have kids.
yeah, but
Down the line, it comes back to haunt you.
Yes, I can understand that for the sake of the kids, you want to do this. But I think it has to go, your relationship has to go much deeper. Has to go much deeper than because of the kids. Right? This is a one-on-one relationship, where the two should be one. That relationship should be closer than the
But you don't think
relationship
your
with
children
the
would make that happen?
Yeah, well,
the love for your kids?
Right, that could be a factor in it.
Right.
But then, as I said, it has to go deeper than that. I have to have this genuine love for this person.
Of course.
And that genuine love must be reciprocated in the first place for this reconciliation to take place. Because I can say, good, because of the child, yes, there is a reconciliation. But it's not a total reconciliation. Because had it not been for the child, then I would not have been here. Right? So it has to go deeper than the child causing this to happen. The child might be a factor, yes, but it has to go deeper than that. And if we're striving for this unity in marriage, it certainly has to go deeper than that. It has to be the love for the partner.
Of course. Well, and from the beginning, that's why you married the person.
Exactly.
It's because of love. So I don't see where it could have that so hard not to forgive your husband. As I was saying, if you have a child out of marriage before you marry, it makes a big difference. But all after you marry and those children are whole solely devoted to you, it's no other step causing it or anything. Yes, you can reconcile. Yes, you can, that's what I say, that it's far more beyond just saying that, look at it working out. You go your way and I go my way. Those children, love again. And I'm sure you had loved your husband 100% to marry him. But being so long with your husband, it's good to love them more and more regardless of what they do. And some of us women would stay in a thing. But if I'm in an abusive relationship, I don't want my kids to grow up seeing my husband keep hitting me or fighting. It's been a big thing like that. It makes a difference. But other than that, for little thing,
yes, I understand, there can be irreconcilable differences.
Yes.
Being a man or a woman But women can be abusive as well, persistently abusive. And there is
Yeah,
no,
I may look for divorce, continue, I think, but.
it could get to that point, where the situation becomes intolerable. Then what do you do?
Again, to go back to for better for worse. What I have seen, like back home, right? I have seen something, women stand up and stay in their home and don't leave and get all kind of abuse.
Yes.
And I see in other homes, just a little thing and they separate.
Right.
Yeah, this is true. This happens. A lot of the arranged marriages get to go through that process and the spouses remain together. But then is it because of genuine love? You see, there are other factors that might be causing that. We come from a culture where, that is kind of embedded in you. In some cultures, when if the woman leaves the house, then she's on her own and takes care of her. You see, so there are a lot of factors which cause that to happen. But we're looking at a Christian marriage, hopefully, and what should we expect of it? How should we develop and grow in this marriage that brings us to one? Because this is what God's intention is, that we shall be one. See? So we're looking at forgiveness and saying, well, look, forgiveness ought to be ongoing, right? The person who is receiving the confession, can rightly say, well, I'm offended and I can hold out. Or they can try to create a safety net which reinforces the idea of forgiveness. It says there, first of all, if your spouse is willing to confess their errors to you, it signifies their desire to be closer. I remember we're talking about the genuine confession, not that, I'm sorry, but I intend to do it again next week. Genuine confession. If your spouse is willing to confess their error to you, it signifies their desire to be closer, to own up to their mistakes, and to repair what is broken. See, that is what a genuine confession is all about. I'm prepared to change. I admit I'm wrong, and I'm willing to make this change. I do everything to make this change. I'll be receiving this confession. As hard as it might be to listen to a confession, it's much more divisive to have secrets between the two of you. If your spouse starts a conversation with, honey, I have a confession to make, let your first reaction be to take a deep breath. Something big is coming here. Remember that a confession is a good thing. Right? Second step is to listen. Listen totally. Not partial, not the first sentence you fly off. Listen. Right? Then listen. Think about what your loved one is saying. Try not to jump to conclusions or add words to their confession. Take another deep breath. Receiving a confession can be painful. So don't discount that. Right? It can be painful. But ask yourself, do I want our marriage to be a safety net?
I think that's all what all of us should want.
Yeah. There is it.
I think this chapter is great for breaking down that process because it's a mind shift. You have to see an obstacle as an opportunity to get closer, because the first reaction is usually shock, fear, fight or flight, that kind of thing. And it's a scary thing to take a leap of faith and to say, I'm going to come clean now, because so many things could happen. You can't control the other person's reaction. So I think it's great that they break this down, but it really is seeing the obstacle as an opportunity.
Yes, exactly. You see? And it's admitting that it can be painful, and we have to accept that. A breach of trust is something that is very painful.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a pain that goes on and on, and you might say, well, okay, I can put this behind my back, but still, it lingers there. We got to be aware of that. So it's a painful thing. When your marriage is a safety net, you can fall into it with peace and security. But your marriage is not a safe place when it's full of grudges and lists of past mistakes that are picked up again whenever a new mistake is made. right, Meryl? That's
Yes,
what you're
sir.
talking about. You know, you kind of rake up all the dirt from way back when. And this is a natural.
How would you, how would someone, or how would a spouse truly answer a question if you had to turn to your spouse and say, honey, if you discover some dirt about me in the future that I have not confessed to you, how would you deal with it? Is that a good question? No. Well, that's too
I don't think so. You know what?
it's too low.
That's a pre-confession question.
I think you're secretly reserving something here. Like, hey, I'm going to make this mistake again. You're secretly in your mind, you're deciding I'm going to do this again.
Because I mean, you're preparing now to confess. Right?
You're confessing before the act.
Test the waters first.
This is pre-meditation.
No, I think he's confessing
But also,
after that.
I'm hearing good news. I'm hearing good news that, listen, be prepared. No matter how it may come your way, for better or for worse, be prepared to handle it in a godly way. I'm hearing that. So I said, you know what? If they ask my spouse, I want to hear how she will deal with it in a godly way. You know, because
Not a first, not a first, not a first.
More in suspense and then.
I want to score before I have to.
But this is why we're building the safety net. Safety net will catch all of that. Right? Yes, so your marriage is not a safe place when it's full of grudges and lists of past mistakes that are picked up again whenever a new mistake is made. And we know that happens. That happens. And it happens too often.
It happens.
Right? Because the natural reaction when something hurts you is to hit back. And so we tend to look back now. You know, you did this last week and the week before. And, yeah.
And it's to forgive and forget.
Right.
Not to say I forgive you, but I
Somebody will
forget.
make a distinction between forgiving and forgetting.
I heard coming.
Forgetting is a process.
Yeah, it takes
a
time.
physical process, as it were, because that's locked in there. You know, you will remember,
You will.
right? So it's not a case of forgetting. You're not forgetting. You're forgiving. You're choosing not to allow it
To
to
have
affect
it
your
affect
But it's not that you forget it. You can't forget it. It's printed there in your memory. Right?
But true love bear no record.
Exactly. Right. You don't keep referring to that record. Right? The record is there yet, but you don't keep going back to it.
I'm not agree with that. The Bible says
In your marriage, how often do you recall past grievances in a new argument? And that's of course something that each of us has to consider. How often does this happen? Refer to past things, and it will be different for each one of us. Some people can let it go and it doesn't affect them, but others will keep harping over it. And that doesn't help. How likely are you to use phrases like, I knew you would do that. You always, or you never.
Looking out for that.
If we give our partners a hard time over every little thing, we can create expectations of perfection that no one can live up to. Right? In other words, all these little things, if you expect them to be perfect, you know, you want a perfect man or a perfect woman, and you know that's not going to happen.
We don't have that. None of us are perfect.
No, exactly. And we got to understand that. It's the same way that I am not perfect, I don't expect my spouse to be perfect. You know, we got to accept that. This makes it difficult for our spouses to do something that is already difficult, confess. We have to love our spouses before, during, and especially after the little confessions. So that when the big confessions come to bear, we are in a better place to receive. So, you know, this matter of confession is something that we have to examine. We have to be committed to it. We have to decide, you know, the union is better than having these grudges, having something that separates us. And we've got to be willing to work towards it.
Sometimes when you make a confession, then you will separate from your spouse.
It might be a good thing.
I just want to share a quick story. This is something work related. I was representing a guy who another employee from a different company accused him of sexual molestation. And he was brought up on charges by the company he works for because of that complaint. And I remember one of the first thing I told him was to make sure you're ready to go home. He lives in Florida, works in New York. I said, when you go home, make sure you tell your wife what's going on. Because it can come to a point where you're going to have to stay at home while this thing is being processed. And thank God he did, because his wife stood beside him, because he was innocent. He didn't do anything wrong. But the accusation painted a negative picture. But he confessed to his wife, and now she helped him beat the case.
Exactly. Yeah, so there is value in this matter of confessing and this attitude of forgiveness. Now, the safety net way of receiving a confession, let's look at how we build this safety net now. That's the object of what we're going to do. First, listen with love. Listen with love. When my husband confesses to me, I try to put myself in the position of his protector and guardian before I allow myself to take his offense personally. When I decide I have the opportunity to show him love, especially when he's embarrassed or ashamed, it opens the door for more communication instead of less. So look, you have to approach this thing with an understanding heart. Here is a failure. How do we deal with this failure? We can be vindictive or we can be forgiving. If we're working for unity in this marriage, then this is the time when I have to be forgiving, when I have to go more than 50%. You have to listen with love. Any comment on that?
Yeah, I kind of disagree on that. But first of all, it depends on what it is you're confessing. Because the normal reaction between non-Christians and Christians when someone confesses, the spouse confess, is you don't want to listen with love. Your first reaction is, you act the way you think at first. But then after you settle in, after a couple of days, you then realize, okay, I go to God with this, and you pray about it and stuff like that. That's how, at least in my experience, that's how I deal with it, right? But listen with love, I guess that's the case with the beef, because that's mild, but something like major, I think that is going to be a big, it won't be love at first, at least at first. But then for certain, after you get to really understand what's going on, then that's when you see God's direction and pray and stuff. So okay, but first reaction with the love part, I kind of.
Well, then we get past about the first reaction. We talked about that earlier. What we really like to do, but we need to look beyond that. Right?
Yeah, afterwards, it takes a
while. Between a couple days you're thinking about it, you got the man sleeping downstairs where the man building a hatred to you.
Well, that's
you
part of the healing process.
So then how you making it back?
That's right. Focus on
Yes, but eventually, yeah. Yeah, miss.
I think if we're stuck on the love thing, it's important to listen with empathy, because we are all sinners. There's no way I could listen to somebody's confession and ever flaw them, because I know I make mistakes too. So I think empathy is more important when you're listening than love. Love, maybe you can process the information later and think, I do love this man or woman, I'll get through this with love. But if you're listening, I think it's important to put yourself in their shoes and to think, maybe I've never committed this sin, but I've committed sin. So we all make mistakes.
But you don't think that empathy flows from love?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think of them as two separate things, honestly. I think of empathy as just the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Maybe that's a loving act. I don't know. I never thought about it.
That has to be a loving act, because if I don't love you, then I don't even consider what you're saying.
But I mean, to be honest, I think about why Hitler killed 6 million views, and that's empathy. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to put myself in his head, but I don't love the guy. You know what I mean?
That's right. All right.
The
second step is give the benefit of the doubt. As you listen, think about whether or not your spouse intended to hurt you. Most of the time, you can give them the benefit of the doubt and believe the best about them. In other words, was the intention here to hurt me? Sometimes the intention was merely to satisfy lust and not necessarily to hurt you. But in satisfying that lust, that person is being selfish. And in being selfish, that person is hurting. So it's a complicated kind of thing.
Very
Right? It's complicated. Yes, it is. The original intention might not be to hurt you, but you might not even be thinking about doing it. You know?
And selfishness power.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm going to share a little home deep here.
Sorry now.
This is a short one. And there was a time when my wife did not confess something to me. But however it was confessed, but not in a, let's sit down and have a nice chat here. And I just want to share that the only thing that bothered me at that point was the fact that she did not confess. What took place, I was happy about. But the fact that she thought that confessing would have hurt me, not realizing that not confessing did me more harm than the actual act. And it wasn't a bad thing, it was just a decision that she made, that's all.
But so we give benefit of the doubt to the person. As Mitzi said, recognizing that we too are sinners and we fall short very often. The third thing is to get clarity. This one can be hard to do, so give yourself some time. If you need space away from your spouse after hearing their confession, ask for it. So if you want them to sleep on the couch, well then this is what it is, that matter of being on the couch. Right? You might need a week, you might need a month.
And then you'll make that poor
For some people it ought to be a permanent place. Right. If you have a lot of questions, ask them. And remember we talked earlier about having all the information. The person you're making this confession to needs to have all the information or enough information to satisfy them. Whereas you might only want to give just a little bit. But they need all the information or as much information as they need to satisfy them. That must be given. So if you have questions, ask them. Get clarity on whatever is going through your mind. The stories we make up on our own can often be much worse than the reality of what happened. So you have to free your mind. Get everything that might be worrying you, might be a burden to you, get it off. Get all the answers you need so that you can make the right decision. How does that sound?
Sounds enlightened. Sounds enlightened.
Amen.
Which is not.
It's not an easy process.
not easy, right?
Nobody's saying that it's an easy process. Right? These are emotions that you're playing with here, and they mean a lot to people. Hurting somebody that deeply is not something easy to get over. It takes definite effort. So it's going to take time. And if you want to build trust again, trust doesn't come overnight. Right? It takes time to build trust again.
Pastor Anita said something earlier. She said, like, in a situation like this, perhaps love could die.
Well, eventually, if it's not addressed, if there's a rift
Trust
that
will die.
continues, right? But if trust dies, eventually love will die.
You lose trust in that person.
Right.
It's not like
Eventually.
you don't love them.
Continues, right?
Still love.
You just opened a good door there, because if the spouse confessed about X, I think you just opened a good door to where you are saying to that spouse, is my understanding, that you got, in presenting your confession, you you've got to be prepared to answer some questions. So what that does, it put me in a good spot to, as I hear the confession, we're saying that it's okay for me to ask a question, and my wife should not be angry about that. Because, like, in other words, don't say I'm confessing, trying to make this thing work, and you're asking me questions. So I think that's a good window to where the other spouse can ask a question in the sake of clarity, rather than
Exactly.
opposing.
Exactly. This is why we said earlier when we were looking at the matter of confession that it must be complete. Right? You mustn't be holding back anything on it. And the spouse that you're confessing to must feel satisfied that they have all the information. So they're free to ask questions, and this is what this is emphasizing here, that you need to ask questions so that you get this thing out of your mind. You get all the information you need to make a proper decision.
Pastor, that's what I was saying earlier. Something before marriage I could understand and I will totally forgive. But after 18 years, 20 years, you've gone out of your marriage and start something that it could be what? It could be, it's hard. I'm married for 47 years and I'm enjoying it still. But what I'm saying is, it's very important to forgive, right? It's very important for your marriage to move on. I was saying it, especially when you have kids. You would think twice and you would never want to divorce or really as a believer reach that decision. But how impossible it is that you marry somebody who's so sweet and loving and all of a sudden you think of certain things that, I'm forgiving you every day for it. There is a line to try. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but you have to come to that agreement. Listen. Because of my kids, we have to draw this line. This is something dangerous, to build a wonderful relationship.
I think, for not a serious battle that keep coming or whatever, major battle, we pray about it. Be still. There's always fight or battle.
We talk that prayer is an essential part of the whole thing. I mean, that's the basis, the background of it all, the foundation of the marriage.
I think what is important that we understand that we are forgiven not because of our children only, not because of our love for our spouse, but because God demands that we forgive. Now, again, Pastor Patrick was mentioning it. That doesn't mean that forgiveness is easy to do. And it takes time to give that person to forgive you. You have to know that if something wrong, that person is going to jab at you. And if they're jabbing at you, it will tell you they're still hurting. And you cannot try to jab back because then you will undo all that you did before. So it's important that you pray. I think that when confessions are being made, you must understand what you're getting into before you do it. I think secondly, it's good to talk to somebody that who could give you proper guidance in terms of confession. Because when you confess, it's a whole can of worms you're opening. And then if you don't have proper support to help you to deal with that, then you could cave in and you say, I tried to do the right thing, but it come out the wrong way. That's where you need guidance. Talk to somebody who will help you through that process of all the rejection you might get and all whatever it is that may come along that way. But I think bottom line is that we have to get to that place. I'm doing it for God. I'm not doing it for any other thing else. Unless there is forgiveness in the body of Christ, there'll be no body of Christ. Unless there's forgiveness in marriage, there'll be no marriages.
And that's where power in praise coming in. That's power in praise.
I believe that also that every marriage will be tested and tried one way or the other. And it could only serve to make you stronger. Now if it's something that is habitual or that's continually keep happening, then that's a different story.
That's another problem.
Yeah.
I want to say something that's very important, and I've been trying to teach this to a lot of people. I myself practice and it helps me a lot. Not all the time, sometimes I get a chance to do it because self gets in the way. But when you're hurting over something, the best thing that you got to do is to try to deal with the hurt. What most people do is they try to deal with the person who hurt them. And trying to do that, you get into revenge. You're not dealing with your hurt, you're just feeding your hurt. And your hurt becomes larger and larger and greater. And you don't want that to happen. You want to minimize your hurt. You want to get rid of your hurt. And the way to do that is to deal directly with that pain. Somebody say or do something to me that they shouldn't do. You got to go to God with that hurt. And say, God, I'm hurting because my husband called me a fool. I'm hurting because my wife kicked me on my foot. That part you have to deal with God. Your emotion, you have to trust God to heal your emotional wounds. And I think that if the emotional wounds are not healed, you're not going to forgive. You're not going to forgive because that you're fighting against two things. You're fighting against what you feel and what you know is right.
And that is why you tend to keep breaking up what happened before.
Exactly.
All right, we'll pick this up again next week.
Thank you, Pastor.